あれがゴジラ。
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report Live here on YouTube and on Facebook. Monster Report's a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. Your host, Nick Adam here, and boy, what a week, what a month it's been ever since Godzilla Day in early November. I've said this, Godzilla Day doesn't need to be just one day. It can go on and on and on, and we are getting just a wealth of content right now to check out and, just enjoy. And, of course, we had the Minus One release. That's going to be the big topic that we have. We have a lot of things happening with Monarch. We have Godzilla X Kong. In fact, I think there was a trailer released minutes before this went live. So I have not even had the chance to check that out yet. So feel free in the chat to talk about that if you'd like. So if you're here, before we bring in our guests, you make sure you smash that like button, atomic blast that like button, and subscribe to this channel, The Monster Report, getting close to that 100,000 subscribers, and it's because of you guys that is all possible. Support The Monster Report and everything we're doing here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter, also known as X these days. So we're going to get your thoughts also on Godzilla Minus One, so make sure you join us in the chat with that. We accept super chats, but I'm not going to require that for reading your chat on the air, but I do appreciate that. That always supports us, and I love to bring other content creators, your audience to my audience, I like to say. So I'm going to bring in my content creator fellowship that I have here. First off, we have Mr. Everett Grondin. How are you?
I'm doing great, Nick. I'm really happy to be here and just talk about all this goodness that, like you said, just kicked off at the beginning of the month and just hasn't seemed to stop.
That's right. Absolutely. And of course, if you know the Monster Report, Everett is a staple guest with me. We're great friends, and we got the chance to actually meet up for the first time in person at the Tucson Kaiju Festival early November on Godzilla Day. So thank you for hosting that event, Everett. Also starring at that same event, we had Mr. Chris Cuypers, Goji Fan 93.
Hey, G fans, it's great to be on the Monster Report again. Love it.
Absolutely. And glad to see you also, Mr. Kevin Derendorf. Thank you for being here with us today and giving us your insights on things. I know you come with a wealth of knowledge, and I'm always envious of everything that you have to say about these films. So thank you for your time. You're always very generous with it.
Sure, absolutely. I'm sorry my video quality is less than everybody else's here.
It is content. It is the quantity or the quality. It's the quality of the content. That's what it is. Yeah. It's not the quality of the picture quality. So we're glad you're here. And we have Adrian in the chat. Good to have you. And Loosely Collected. That'd be our good friend Jonathan, right, Everett?
Yep.
All right. We got some Minus One fans here. And of course, we are fine with speaking about spoilers. I will just call it the spoiler embargo is lifted. I mean, I don't know if it's literally been lifted, but I'm calling it lifted at this point. So we're fine with talking about the film. Tell us about all the secrets, especially like when I was, I was telling Everett in his chat when he was trying to be spoiler free, the scene where Godzilla, tells his son Minya that he's his father, Darth Vader, and also is, and Minya sees dead people. I mean, it's just like all the spoilers you want. So we could just make up spoilers for this. I'm just fine with that too. We're gonna have some fun today with that. Oh, and in another week, we got another week for Monsters with Attitude, but we'll allow it this time. So let's just go around the block here, starting with Everett. Tell us first impressions of it, and now that you've had the chance to at least see it twice at this point, how you feel about it. Has it changed from the first to second viewings, and where are you now with how you feel about this film?
First time watching it, I mean, what a spectacle. I mean, Toho just did a fantastic job with this movie all around. It's just fantastic from the score to the effects to the character building. All of that is just they hit it out of the park. They hit it more than out of the park. They hit it out of the universe. I mean, this film just Toho's back. It's back to that, gritty Godzilla serious story, and they did it so well. And even after seeing it the second time, I couldn't find anything else that I didn't like about it. Like there's just my minor nitpicks of practical effects, but we're in just a whole new era now, and we're on this new road, and we just got to live with that, and that's okay. But other than that, it's like I really can't think of anything that I really disliked about this movie. The story is solid, just everything is just fantastic. From I'm hoping to see it again, in all honesty. So before it leaves theaters, at least 3 times.
Absolutely. Chris, I don't know if you saw the episode we had with our good friend Matt Burkett. Did you happen to catch that stream?
No, I haven't yet, actually.
No, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Because what I was going to say is I know you guys are good friends too, and you go way back. Matt and I, and maybe us here on this stream may differ, and that's okay. If there was scenes about it any of you guys did not like about this film, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. No one in the chat, please, no negativity about this, about individuals. If you had criticisms about the film, that's perfectly fine, and that's fair. I think Toho needs to hear that as well, but we don't have a Hollywood film on this. And before we get your reaction on how many times you've seen it and what your feelings are towards it, loosely collected, I won't be reading that on the air, but I don't think you saw the same Godzilla film. Let's just say that. But it's in the chat if you guys. It's in the chat if you guys want to read it. But go ahead, Chris. Tell us what you thought.
First time seeing it. Saw it in the early fan event. It was fantastic. I saw it with my family and my wife. My parents, they came down to visit too, so that was really cool. Just seeing it with my parents and also my wife, and all of them loved it. My parents obviously have, they're more Godzilla fans too. Obviously, that's why I'm a Godzilla fan. But even my wife loved the film too, and she's not a Godzilla fan, and she even was like, "Yeah, this is pretty good stuff." And I plan on seeing it actually tomorrow again for my second time. It's just going to be me. When I bought the tickets, there was like no other seats that were there. So it probably might just be me. I got like the whole theater to myself, maybe, who knows? But so I'm very excited to see it again. But yeah, I mean, it is. And again, I don't want it to be like if it's recency bias or whatever. But it is to me the perfect Godzilla film. It has everything that I look for in a Godzilla film. It has everything that I love about Godzilla. I mean, it's like the modern interpretation of what 54 was. Like, I feel like watching it for the first time in theaters was like how the audience in the 50s felt watching the first one for the first time. Like, just this amazing, like, oh my God, what do we look at? This is so cool. I mean, it was intense. It was emotional. It was just like, I've never been so into a film just on the first viewing than I was with this. And it's not just, I don't want to say it's just because it's Godzilla. I think just as a film, it's just masterfully made. The script, the characters, the music, the special effects. There's literally nothing I can say that is negative towards this film. Like, to me, it's a 10 out of 10, perfect. Like, I literally can't find anything wrong with it. And if it wasn't for 84, it would be my number one Godzilla film. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. Before we get to Kevin, Adrian, yes, thank you. He's got sending some love towards Chris. Autistic Lizard Productions. Brendan, good to have you here in the chat. All right. And Kevin, know you had the chance to get to Japan early on and see this as probably as early as the releases internationally go. And so tell us about your kind of reaction, how many times you got to see it, and what that experience was like.
Oh gosh, so each time that I've seen it, it's been a little bit different. Because the first time was on the 3rd in Havia with a big crowd outside. They were doing the event, and that was fantastic. The movie itself, it's I think much more of a like general audience crowd pleaser than we have had from the Japanese series after a while. So that was something I kind of suspected based on Yamazaki's other work, but it's one of those things that after Shin Godzilla, Singular Point, and the Polygon trilogy, all of those are things I would not want to watch without subtitles. Minus One, I was able to follow things. I can speak Japanese a little bit, but not great. But I was able to basically follow the plot fine, seeing it in Japan without subtitles. It helps that my wife is fluent.
Nice.
Yeah. So my impressions of the film haven't changed a whole lot from screening to screening, because then I went to I saw it back here in New York at Japan Society, and then I saw it on opening day at the IMAX on Wednesday. It's just one of those things that has just kind of, I think it's quite well made. I think that there's a whole big variety of what Godzilla can be. So, it's one of those things that it's not hitting every note that I would personally want, but I also think that this is a great movie for introduction audiences. I can show, I could show my mom hypothetically this movie, whereas you just mentioned 84. Like, I think that's a great movie, but at some point, the Super X comes out and people are just going to be like, nope, that's too much.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I'll admit.
But that stuff is like catnip for me. I like it when like the aliens come out and so on and so forth. But it's just something that I think different tastes and having that variety, I think is key. And this is definitely, a work of an auteur with a very specific vision and style. And I love that consistently we've been getting that out of the Reiwa era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, excellently put. And I was going to say, criticisms again opening, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the criticisms I have. I did release my, my solo review on this recently, and check it out. But it's short. But to go deeper into this, no film is perfect. I guess it's a perfect Godzilla movie. We could say that as a opinion, but I feel like every film, can stand criticism, and I think that in this film, a few of the things that, if I had my, choice in it, if I had the director's chair, which of course I would love it, but I'm going to say that, there may have been certain decisions that I may have changed about it, things about pacing and all that we could differ on. I think some of the things about like the familial aspects of it, I would say there are certain times that I felt like maybe that dragged on a little bit long, trying to establish the characters. There are some moments that seem as though the characters are difficult to differentiate from one another, because I feel like the names were kind of a challenge in this, even though I'm pretty familiar with Japanese names, and when they speak to each other in the Showa series and they're referring to each other by their names. And of course, a lot of us who are fans get to see the old studio system. So we knew about Akira Takarada, we knew about Haru Nakajima. We knew these names. They were part of our dialogue because they were in multiple films. These actors and these characters have somewhat of unfamiliar names. So at times I was like, Koichi. Okay, I got Koichi. I got Akiko. But some of the other names, they were going by so quickly, I was having trouble, really connecting with them. Now, for a Japanese audience, I would say that would be no problem at all. For maybe an international audience, it might be a little difficult at times to really follow that kind of procession about it. One of the other things that I was kind of critical on, and I didn't say this in the video, but there were times when they would actually switch over to the military ships, and every crew member is in a straight line across the guardrails there, and I felt like that was actually kind of a weak point. It looks like I've paused, but are you guys still with me?
Yeah, we still hear.
Yeah.
Okay, So hand motions here. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. All right. Anyways, yeah. Whoo. Yeah. I get into the talking with my hands. But yeah. So yeah, there were times that they were standing in a straight line and all of them standing by the guardrails. That would have been a directorial decision that I thought took us out of that. They're all standing on their markers, ready to react to whatever they're seeing. And that was just, again, one of those things that took me out of it, realizing I'm watching a movie. So let's go around the block again and say, if there was something about this that you could say you could be critical of, that could use some improvement on second notice, maybe you'd choose something different, and it could be anything, to the effects, to the music, to the acting, to the whatever that you might want to see included in this or changed in this. And Everett, if you've had enough time to think about that, and if not, maybe you want to punch.
Boy, what is something I could critique about the film itself?
And don't you dare say put Titanosaurus in it, okay?
No. Let's see. I want to say, I want to know more about Godzilla himself a little bit in this one, because it's not necessarily clear of his origin necessarily. I mean, he shows up on Odo Island, and at that point, it's basically like, okay, it's just a legend that's true. Of course, he's smaller. He's more, it reminded me a lot of just like Jurassic Park, T-Rex, that type of horror, basically. And I would want to know more, like, was he irradiated at that time? Like, what's the deal with the fish? Because we know that the bomb goes off, in the Bikini Atoll, and that's what irradiates him. But it's like, so was he just basically like a living creature? Is that like, kind of MonsterVerse lore working its way in there? Like, where did it come from? Like that, I want more of a little. Granted, we always know what Godzilla's origin is, but just this one was kind of lackluster in that area, to where, what you were saying about how some of the scenes might have dragged on just a little bit too long in certain areas. Maybe they could have, cut that down and put in more of a lore aspect on the monster itself. But other than that, I really can't think of anything else I would really change other than that, in all honesty.
Even just something small. Just give me a little bit of the origins. But to say there's none. I mean, there literally is none. I mean, he's just a legend. He's just a part of the mythology there, which I guess you could go back to the Gojira 54 and say there's sort of isn't, but they do go into some pseudoscience in 54 at least, of dinosaurs, and I think they said in the original 2 million years ago, and it was like, yeah, things have changed a little bit, in our knowledge of things. But anyways, so yeah, it's some origins. That would have been nice, actually. Chris, feel free to shoot holes in this, and we'll still love you.
No, actually, on that topic that you're talking about, Nick, with the characters' names and that it was hard to memorize them. I'm horrible with the names, so that's why I'm excited to see it again, to really learn their names, because I really love these characters. And also, when I do my official review of it, like, I want to have like the wiki next to me just in case. But I feel like that might be remedied when eventually we get a dub. Maybe it's just be easier to hear like an English dub, and we can get those names in that sort of way. Maybe that might help. I'm not really sure. But the only I can't really think of anything that's like super negative or more of like nitpicks, maybe. The one thing I was thinking of was, there was really only like one destruction scene. Really, like, if you think about it, like, he comes up in Ginza and destroys the place, and then that's it. The rest of it is all in the boat scenes or in the ocean or stuff like that. And that got me thinking. I was like, okay, it was really just one major destruction scene, which, again, I can't fully be angry at that because I feel like what it was perfect. You know, like I don't think I don't know, because like 54 it was two major attack scenes, right? He showed up twice, right? And like the first
In
time he
Tokyo.
destroyed the bridge, like he destroyed the bridge. It was like a quick one, and then was the final longer time that he destroyed. But like this one, I thought that was interesting. That it was just like one city destruction scene. But again, they did it so well that I didn't feel like I needed more, or something like that. But that would be like the nitpick, I would say. But still, I can't think of like a major negative. Like I really can't.
Yeah, and nitpicking is perfectly fine. Again,
and again, I'm only this is only first view, because tomorrow I am seeing it again. So maybe tomorrow when I see it again, I'll have maybe more to look at. But I don't know. I'm still 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Well, you and I are in the same boat with that, because you and I have only seen it once. I know Everett twice. Kevin, how many times have you seen it? And then maybe you said it and I missed it, but and tell me kind of your criticisms.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 times so far. I think for things that I would personally change taste wise, a big one is a lot of the characterization of Noriko, because she's I feel like her introduction is great, but then after that she turns into this very like kind of idealized version of a woman as opposed to like a person, and she just has infinite patience and infinite kindness, and even the like she has this baby, but it's not her baby, it's just a baby that she's raising because she's so good and stuff like that, and just like I don't know about that. And then the very ending where she is back and is more concerned with Shikishima's well-being than her own as she lies in a hospital bed. It's like, okay, come on. So that's one thing that kind of like ruffled my feathers a little bit about the movie. I think that some of the music choices maybe could be have gone through another pass, because I don't think that Naoki Sato is a great musician, but his stuff doesn't match one-to-one with Ifukube's style. So it's like it feels like his music stopped and then the Ifukube music starts, and I'm like, okay, this is a little jarring.
And you're right about the Ifukube music, whereas this one didn't use those old monaural recordings of Ifukube like Shin.
Or like Shin
used.
did, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Shin, it really stood out. This one, you're also right. It stood out. I'd say the recordings quality was there with the modern music that was added. But you're right. It's like you hit the stop button and play button on another track, and it's noticeable. And in fact, they use this is just one of those things that maybe also on my part, the King Kong versus Godzilla portion of it, which to a Godzilla fan, it's like, well, he's not fighting another monster here. So, why are we going there? I know they use that in Shin as well. So it was kind of like, this is something I talked about with my son a lot, because he is a big music fan. And so when we put random Godzilla tracks on, Ifukube or Manabe or any of the others, that he can pick out which movie that came from very easily. So, and the King Kong versus Godzilla soundtrack, very signature to that film. And I thought that was an interesting choice why they used it. I guess I would have picked maybe a different track of Ifukube to use, but they chose to use it. And it did strike, it struck me, as a Godzilla fan, that's awesome. But I also agree with you. Why not just go ahead and have the entire soundtrack be Ifukube, or the entire soundtrack be original? And that's why I liked Shin's Persecution of the Masses. Go ahead and expand upon what you've already laid down with that, and make that a complete track, of original music. So all of those are fair criticisms. And the other thing that I mentioned before we went on the air, and Kevin, you can address this a little bit, is that idea of this Toho scope and it fitting into IMAX screens, because I don't believe that they're completely compatible, right?
I mean, when I saw it on an IMAX screen, first of all, the IMAX is much taller than what you're getting with the scope. But I mean, the screen that I saw it on, they also it was boxed on all four sides. There was like a good 2 feet of black on either side of the screen that just wasn't masked properly. So I think that's just kind of what you get at like AMC's. The people that work there don't really like care about presentation that much.
That's right. And yeah, and it looks like I paused again, so just forgive me if I completely am out. Let me know. Oh, I know. Yeah, and I've got to do this with hand motions. Come on, it's my internet. But yeah, did you happen to look it up, Kevin, to see if this was actually done in scope?
I couldn't find it anywhere specifically, the aspect ratio, but I mean it looked like it to me, so that's, I would believe that, but I'm also not. There are people that are much better at identifying, you know, at a glance.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite widescreen, like
Yes.
Toho Scope likes to get. They're wider than the typical, you know, American widescreen films. And yeah, so if I were to, you know, throw this out there as far as the the design of Godzilla, going from the devolved, essentially origin point of Godzilla, you know, into what we see, you know, in his final form. Did you feel like that worked well? Let's actually, I'll go kind of popcorn style here, starting with Chris here. You know, tell me about that, the design of it from the early origin version of Godzilla on Odo Island to what we finally got. Did you think it worked well? You think it could have been improved upon? What are your thoughts?
Well, the funny thing is with it, you know, I was trying to go into the film with, you know, no spoilers as possible. But one day, and I don't know if you guys, you know, I browse eBay from time to time just to see how the collecting, you know, sphere is going. And trust me, this connects to what I'm talking about here. But I guess there was Bandai figures that were actually of the pre-nuke Godzilla look. And it was like, because it was like titled the Odo Island Godzilla or something like that. And I saw that, and at first I was like, you know, like I didn't know if that was like real or not. But then, you know, seeing it in the film, I was like, okay, it wasn't too bad. I was like, all right, that's fine. I mean, as far as his first look, I thought it was really cool. Like because again, Toho with the Reiwa era, they've been very crazy with his designs. And I think that what they did with this design was, I think what they did was they looked at like the Godzillasaurus from King Ghidorah, and they were like, okay, how can we sort of modernize that? And how can we, what can we do with that to make it more terrifying? And I think that's what we got. And I really liked it. And then obviously his transformation into, you know, the design that we have now, I thought it was great. I mean, the suit, not the suit, the design itself is brilliant. I mean, I think it mixes all types of different designs over the years, and I think to culminate into something that I think can make every fan happy. I feel, you know, like I haven't heard a lot of negative reactions of this design, because I feel like it doesn't go too extreme. Let's say like Shin Godzilla, or even like maybe the Millennium suit, where, you know, it's like super jagged dorsal plates. But it also, you know, it's also very subtle at the same time. So it's sort of this nice mixture. I guess the only thing about him that's probably exaggerated might be like his elbow. Like he has like little points on his elbow, you know, like in some shots. But I thought that, you know, that looked good too. No, I think everything was great. I mean, I really, it's the 10 out of 10 design too. It's just 10 out of 10 for me. I don't know. I feel like such a shill for this movie, but it's so true.
Be honest, that's okay. You know, it's just fun.
I loved it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I loved it too. You know, and then there's some people like Chris out there who love Space Godzilla, and we forgive him for it. And
he's a great monster. He's great.
Yeah. But then you know, they also don't like King Kong Escapes, but I'll let Leslie beat you up all over that.
Yeah, here we go. Oh, Leslie, are you around? Let's go. Let's do this.
And Everett, I'm going to see if I can't reconnect my camera, so I might be kicking out, and I'll let you take this one on. Visual effects, as far as this, obviously it's a, you know, CGI film with live action, you know, special effects as well going on in there. You know, tell me, did the special effects work well? Have you seen better in Shin, or in anything else that you feel like that it took you out of it, or do you think they work? And while you're talking about that, let me see if I can't reconnect my browser to the camera.
Okay. Well, again, like Chris has said, it's 10 out of 10 with everything. I mean, the effects and the CGI just look phenomenal for what they were able to do with
For the budget.
$15 million versus these big budget Hollywood, Marvel, whatever, from Disney and all these other corporations that are $200-300 million plus movie budgets. This has to be like, if this doesn't win movie of the year and get a bunch of awards, there's something wrong. You know what I mean? It basically will come back to the thing where Barbie was beating out Oppenheimer in the theaters. It's like, what is wrong with you people? Like, what?
Yeah.
Come on now. No, this Godzilla movie just hits all the right notes. And I can't think of anything that I don't like about it digitally wise. Like, I remember I watched this video not too long ago, and I forget how much that they said alone, like doing the ocean effects and stuff, because that's the hardest thing to replicate in CGI is like water.
Yeah.
And so for them, again, just to do this on the budget that they did is just, it's outstanding. And, that's why I say, Toho's back. This is everything you could want in a Godzilla film. It literally has everything. And what's funny is, for those that may follow me on Instagram, I did a little Instagram reel not too long ago, and I kind of went over, what Godzilla movies would I introduce somebody who's new to this fandom or wants to learn more about Godzilla and stuff like that, and like, what movies should they watch? And it's funny, I made that video and then saw Minus One, because Minus One falls in that category. It's a movie that you could show to somebody, and whether they're a Godzilla fan or not, it's just something that they're going to enjoy. So again, it just 10 out of 10 for everything. The effects, all of that were just great. The explosions, the smoke, the water, Godzilla himself. I mean, wow. Just wow. So, Kevin, what about you?
I guess backing up to the design, I think it was very prudent of Toho to familiarize the audience with the Godzilla the Ride like a year or so beforehand. So that way, if that design was not well received, they'd have time to go back and tweak it. I thought it was kind of amusing. Also, the Godzilla that's on Odo Island, when they're merchandising it, and even in the novelization, they render his name in kanji instead of in katakana for the Gojira, right?
Yeah.
And then what I saw when the toy was first online, people were just running it through Google Translate, and because it was Chinese characters instead of Japanese characters, they were getting wild, weird names for it that weren't correct. And I was just looking at that and chuckling, like, no, that's not what that is.
Not that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Regarding the effects, I think that it's something that Yamazaki is an effects person first and foremost. So like, that's where his background is, and he's been working. All of his movies have extensive special effects, and I think from that perspective, you can look at, like, I think the movie that this time got him this job offer, because he was offered Godzilla movies multiple times, was the Great War of Archimedes, and that has these battleship sequences with the battleship Yamato in World War II and stuff like that. And I think that that's something where they've had a lot of chances to refine the way that those CGI look for World War II battles. But it is interesting because when I saw it opening day, we ran into Yuji Kaida afterwards, and he was like concerned that American audiences would not like latch on to the special effects. He thought they weren't going to be like up to snuff for the
Wow.
US. I'm impressed to see that, like, at least in the fandom, it's been very well received, and it does seem like people are really going to bat for it. So, and again, it's a, Japanese filmmaking is a much smaller budget than American filmmaking for a number of reasons. But yeah, it's impressive. But Yamazaki's been impressive the whole way through. I mean, when Shin Godzilla was first announced, they said, we're going to make a high quality movie like Parasite. That was one of his movies. So he does creatures really well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Nick, I think we have you back. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. He just froze again.
Just froze again. He's.
Have you been fed blood coagulant any recently?
Something's going wrong. I know there's a Mac joke, an Apple computer joke or something, but it's we were talking about AI before we went on the screen here, and how it was going to destroy the world and all. Well, it's starting with my computer.
It's starting with the monster report.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say everything you guys were saying about the art and the Photoshop and everything with AI. I wanted to say John Connor's looking at both of you right now with such shame.
We literally have so many movies warning us about this monster we're about to create and unleash, right? I know, Adrian. Yeah, some host. Right. Absolutely. Right. We'll throw this one out there. Okay, let's see where to go with it. My IMAX theater, actually, I've said this before in the live stream before and in the review. I don't know.
So
robot voice.
Robot voice.
The dreaded robot voice.
It's literally trying to take Nick out of existence here. We might lose him.
It's big IMAX.
Did my question come through?
No, it did not.
No.
Yes, big IMAX. Okay. The IMAX theater was really crazy loud in my theater.
Okay.
I don't know if it was mine or if everyone had that same experience.
Yeah, I didn't see it in IMAX, but no, this movie definitely has some loud moments to where the theater and like the walls, you could hear some of the vibrations and stuff, especially with like the atomic breath and certain just zoning in on Godzilla when he's just about to roar and stuff like that. No, it was very, you gotta see, if you're a Godzilla fan, you gotta see this in the movie theaters. If you don't, you are truly missing out on something special.
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX, and I didn't feel like it was super loud, like outrageously loud. But the one part that actually was like literally earth shattering was when they're on the boat at the first time and he got the job and he's trying to shoot down the mines. As soon as he shot that first one, it was just boom, and like the whole freaking theater shook, and I was like, damn. So yeah, that was that was probably the earth-shattering moment, but it wasn't like overbearingly loud. I mean, but I think it helped, though. It helped the experience. I feel like even when, like you said, Everett, when Godzilla roared, or the when the breath attack, and then the huge explosion from that, it definitely helped the immersiveness of it. It was like, wow. So yeah.
My theater was fine, but I have some friends who are like audio engineers who went to a different IMAX. And because their audio engineers have apps on the phone to monitor noise, and like looking at it afterwards and like, oh wow, this is like 105 decibels. Like, yeah, that's like an OSHA violation right there.
That's OSHA.
I'll throw this out to anyone. Beyond territorial, with Godzilla, his motivation to defend territory, whether Japan's his territory or not, Odo Island was, but apparently Ginza was also. Is there more motivation that Godzilla has to be anti-humanity in this film? Because maybe I missed it, but I felt like it was, it's territorial, and that was it.
Yeah, I got that feeling too. Like they did, especially with the whole dragging the speaker through the ocean and replaying a voice of Godzilla's. You'll think of it as another.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll be like, oh, it's another territorial challenge and stuff like that. And of course, that gave me MonsterVerse vibes and everything too, because of the whole, Alpha Predator and stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of wish that, again, if there was just more to why Godzilla was doing what he was doing, because it's like with something like Shin Godzilla or the original and stuff like that, you have the metaphor for the atomic bomb, or metaphor for natural disaster. He's just this walking unstoppable force, and he's you can't stop him. This one, again, we didn't really get an origin, but when we had that major city destruction scene, I'll clean it up for the stream and stuff here, but we all know of that meme and gif of Godzilla destroying different things from like different films. And it's just like, well, F that and F that building and this and that and everything else. You too. Why not you? That's what I felt this Godzilla was. Because when he was going through, he was literally tearing through these buildings, like, get out of my way, and stuff like that. And I was like, he's literally going after these, whether he's going after people individually or not. He made eye contact with people even when he was smaller on Odo Island. So it was just like, but again, just not having an origin set up or a motivation for Godzilla at that point. It was just kind of like, again, he's an unstoppable force, but outside of just him being a metaphor for atomic weapons again, and the whole territory thing, you don't really get too much else out of it on why is he doing what he's doing.
Sorry, Nick.
Well, and you can comment to this too, Chris, because prior to 84, or in this case, any period piece, he's not after nuclear material, not after food or energy, because they don't exist. Or at least they don't exist as a power plant sort of situation. And Japan doesn't have nuclear weapons at this time, so he's not after that prior to 84. And of course, that was the first chance in any 84 where he actually has that motivation for sustenance. And so, so other than that as a motivating factor, which he doesn't have in this one either, what is your thoughts on motivation?
I mean, did he get motivation in 54 though? I mean, like, I feel like it was this. I feel like it's the same. Like he pops up and is just destroying stuff, and then they're like, I don't even know if they explained why he's doing what he's doing, other than the metaphor. What it is, but. I don't know. Did he have motivation in 54?
I think in 54 when they were, I'd have to watch it again, but when they're doing that whole conference thing and everything like that, they said that, Godzilla was probably this ancient dinosaur that was awakened and probably opened like a crack in the ocean floor. I feel like it's something like that. And just kind of disturbed his slumber, and of course the radiation mutated him into this giant creature that just now wreaks havoc and kind of in a way punishes humanity. I don't know.
I mean, if anything, I think that he was probably docile on the island before he got hit by the nuke, but maybe the nuke getting hit by that just made him really aggressive, super aggressive, to the point where anything is an enemy. And I don't know. I mean, but that's a good point though. I mean, it actually makes me think about a lot of the films in the years and going like, what is his motivation? Like 84 makes sense. Like, that totally is that. Like, that's like the first scene he pops up, he's grabbing the reactor, and like, okay, we get that. But even like the other ones too, it's like, okay, is it just because he's vengeful or something? GMK did a good job explaining it, I guess. The vengeful spirits, but it is interesting, like the motivation. But I don't know.
The novelization does make it like explicit that like he's angry because he got nuked. Now, why does he attack Odo Island before he gets nuked? That's kind of unclear. I mean, Yamazaki's made comments of like, oh, he's like a god that has to be placated or something along those lines. So maybe if they if they had, fed him a bunch of fish instead of shooting him or something like that, maybe it would have gone down differently.
Right.
But that's something that I feel like we're getting kind of like different messages depending on which part of the movie we're in.
Yeah.
And that's interesting about the novelization, which I'm going to have to check out too. Is that available in English for all of us to check out and read?
There's a machine translated version that's up on, I think, My Kaiju right now. But how long that'll be up, I don't know, because they also posted the complete text in Japanese. And for a recent novel of a blockbuster movie, that seems like something that's asking to get C&D'd real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll get the the hardback paperback edition eventually, and and the digital version that's paid for. And Kevin, a little fact check that I'm curious about. The bomb that was dropped, at least the date that was put on that, was 1946 for the Bikini Atoll. Am I mistaken that was actually the Lucky Dragon number 5 incident with the Bikini Atoll, or is that a different test? And
the Lucky Dragon thing was in 54. So
right. So were they incorrect with this one saying that this Bikini Atoll was in 46? And maybe there was another test that happened that early on, but I felt like there was, you're right. It was literally the Lucky Dragon was 6 months prior to Gojira 54's release. So
yeah, exactly.
So maybe this was another.
Yeah. So I mean, they were doing A-bomb tests at that point. They weren't doing H-bomb tests yet, I don't believe. So, yeah, I'd have to double check the timelines there to see if that added up. But
we have Mr. Pusateri that's talking about Crossroads series. Okay. And again, the collective knowledge of the internet, sometimes you throw it out there. But yeah, I figured that was another one. What I was understanding was Lucky Dragon was literally, you were saying H-bomb, not A-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the neighborhood of the Bikini Atoll.
Right.
Which maybe that was multiple tests were happening on that atoll until, of course, brought down completely was the large mushroom cloud. Okay. And homages. There was the other homage. And I think one of you guys mentioned it was before I kicked out there several times, was the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah 92 references, 91, 92.
Yeah.
Was there other references that you could see that were either homages or,
Oh, yeah.
There were a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell me ones because I've got a few, but I'd like to hear you guys.
Big one, definitely the when Godzilla first comes ashore, and then there's the train conductors driving the train. That was straight,
it's like scene by scene.
Let's see. Anything else? Oh man, that's the one that really stood out to me. Of course, there is the Ghidorah, Godzillasaurus kind of type deal. Even with the kind of like warship, even unleashing the big cannons, against Godzilla, like that reminded me a little bit of when the big battleships were blowing up Godzillasaurus in 91 and everything. Another thing that I'd like to point out is like kind of like a factual thing, and I described it differently in my review, but I want to say it here is the way Godzilla charges up his beam and everything like that. It's very similar to how they start up a nuclear reactor. They have those things that come out and then they go back in. It's like so it's like that was a kind of cool factual to real life reference, if anything. And but the way I described it in my review was it kind of just also reminded me of how you cock a gun before you fire it. It's the way Godzilla was with his atomic blast. It's like so Chris,
that was good. I like that. But yeah, Kevin or Chris, any of the other references you noticed?
Yeah, one of was the conference room scene where they're devising the plan to take Godzilla out. It just, even though it was like a smaller room and it didn't have as many people, obviously, but it just screamed that scene in 54 where they're all bickering about like what this is and how to take him out and all this stuff. And then the scene when they have the projector playing and then they close the curtains and everything. I don't know, just in my head I was just like, oh, that's that part in 54 where they're also closing the curtains. It's very small, but I feel it might not be a reference, but to me it's like, hey, it just seems similar. So that was one of the things I noticed. Yeah.
And old technology, the idea that they had to darken a room.
Yeah.
Any kind of projection during that time, you're going to be drawing blinds. These days, projectors really, they're so bright, we don't need that worry. But there was a bit of the Monarch vibes too from the whole planning out of that, and the classic look to the old Monarch of the day when they were starting to discover Godzilla in the MonsterVerse series. Yeah. But yeah, Kevin, and I'm interested in knowing if there's any of the other references you can point out.
I mean, for the Godzilla series, I think definitely the ending is very similar to GMK with the slasher movie, severed heart starts
100%
or whatever.
For sure.
GMK is one of Yamazaki's favorite Godzilla films, so I think there's little bits of it that are going to be a little bit reminiscent in terms of the way that he's going around targeting people, and the way that when he shoots his beam, it causes the mushroom cloud to come up in the similar way to what happens in GMK. Then outside of that, I think that there's just a whole lot of, and this makes total sense, the Eternal Zero, which was Yamazaki's kamikaze pilot movie. When the plane is revealed, they play a theme that's very similar to the theme of that movie. That's a movie where a guy basically comes back from World War II and winds up marrying and adopting the daughter of one of his fellow kamikaze pilots. So it's in the ruins of World War II, kind of like this guy with this woman and their baby, and they're coming up together. So there's definitely echoes of that throughout this movie as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you in a minute here about some of that gap that maybe a lot of us in the U.S. that haven't delved into a lot of Yamazaki's other work. I know you have, and other than maybe I don't know about Everett and Chris here, but the Always Sunset on 3rd Street reference with Godzilla, the dream sequence. Other than that, and Godzilla the Ride, of course, I know exposure to Yamazaki's other work is a bit out of what we typically delve into. And now I'm interested, especially from what you said, but I'll ask you about that in a second, because the reference I was wondering if anyone was going to point out was they discovered Regenerator G1 way before.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. I blow him up. It grows back. Okay. I really got to blow him up. So, and it really doesn't matter because, in perfect GMK style, it's almost like if he's got something left of him in the flesh, it's coming back. He's like Jason Voorhees. You can't kill him. He's going to keep coming back for you. Can't keep a good monster franchise down. But yeah, tell us about Yamazaki. Tell us about, how this either fits within the glove of his style or differs from his style, from his other films and other works.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, as you were saying that, I just remembered, how similar this is to Shin Godzilla in many ways also, in terms of the multiple forms, the kind of very ambiguous ending that, we're meant to kind of speculate on what it means, even the big operation to defeat Godzilla at the end. It's the Operation Yashiori, which is in Shin Godzilla, that's a reference to Japanese mythology, and it's Operation Watatsumi, which is a reference to Japanese mythology. So there's just kind of echoes between those as well. But yeah, regarding Yamazaki, I think he's the 4th highest grossing Japanese director of all time in terms of he's had a lot of blockbusters, and this is, I want to say, his 20th movie. So he's, been working consistently with Toho, and in terms of his oeuvre, he's got a lot of rhythms that he hits a lot of times. So I did a whole presentation for Kaiju Masterclass, and at the end of it, I made a bingo card of things that he has as frequent tropes. And then as I was just going through this, I'm like, okay, so we have a tearful farewell sequence. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have a guy that has to take care of a little kid. Okay, and the special effects scenes, and World War II, even having a title that's in English. This is Godzilla Minus One. That's not a Japanese title. That's one of his hallmarks. The movie's over 2 hours long. And he has a lot of kind of rose tinted glasses nostalgia kind of views of the past. Because if you look at Always, like those are about, you know, a kind of a poor family living in Tokyo as it's developing into a modern city. And like in the first movie, the thing is you see Tokyo Tower being built up in the background. And this has very similar tropes in that, you know, you start off with completely firebomb decimated Tokyo, and then through a series of montages, you know, their houses get a little bit nicer, their clothes get a little bit nicer, and you kind of get this feeling of like, yeah, things are getting better, they're going to be all right. And then Godzilla comes and tears it all down, but it still has that kind of like very hopeful ending where you feel like, no, we're gonna climb up through our own bootstraps or whatever to take care of business. So that's another one of his kind of trends. He kind of has a lot of mixed messaging about, you know, the Japanese military and nationalism in a lot of his movies. So that's just something to be aware of. There's a lot of controversy with this movie, particularly in that, like, Japan was occupied by the U.S. at that point in time. Like, historically speaking, there should have been like U.S. soldiers like all over the place in that movie.
Right.
And
True.
they're just not there because he's kind of like catering to this kind of like fantasy version of Japan where, like, no, like the people, they could do everything by themselves. They didn't need help from anybody. and they were able to, you know, come and fight the good fight. And that's kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, it's like a bunch of ex-military people, but now they're fighting for a good cause, and you get kind of like mixed messages about how that all comes together. So it gets very complicated. Like,
would you say that this, at least this nationalism kind of trope that's in this one is a more subtle than Shin? Because it was pretty in your face in Shin.
It was in your face in Shin also. I think they're both in different ways, but I will say that this is kind of less so than you get in like Eternal Zero or Fuel the Man They Call Pirate, which is, you know, about poor oil tycoons that have to go out and do things by themselves without the government assistance. But it's one of those things that you got kind of like to keep in mind as you're watching and kind of like just be aware of. I'll say that much. Now in terms of like the messaging in Shin Godzilla, that's also very kind of it's very much about Japan coming together and doing something, but it's because it's set in the time period that it's set in, it kind of has a whole different modus operandi, if that makes any sense. You know, set during the occupation.
Yeah, because we're not talking about the Fukushima disaster and the tsunami. We're talking about, you know, the post-war, which obviously you're right, the devastation there. I'm going to share this with you guys, something I found earlier on.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, this is the Captain Yukizaki, which finding a picture of the actor who played him in Minus One was actually very difficult, but I found this one making reference to the historical Yukizaki, which I have not done enough research, so don't act like I'm an expert or pro on this particular subject yet. I will look into this.
Yeah, that character is a fictional character, but the ship that he's the captain of is the Yukikaze, and that is a real ship. So it's a little bit weird that they have a fictitious guy being the captain of a real battleship also.
Okay, gotcha. So real battleship, but I did get in my video, you know, the idea of this being somewhat of a tribute to the Yoshifumi Chajima, Jun Sasaki generals of the Showa era. You know, just because, you know, they were the OG, they're wearing the captain's hat, you know, they got the little mustache. You know, a lot of that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is our OG general guy, you know, who's gonna get us where we need to be. And I was like, you know, I appreciated that little bit of reference, but yeah, his role wasn't, you know, too critical. It was mostly, you know, Doc and, you know, our main lead characters. that were happening in that. And I also mentioned this, and and if I'm keeping you guys too long, just let me know. Maybe we'll go another 15 minutes if you guys are okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want to just keep going because we could talk for hours on this, and I know it's so much. But as far as predictability, there were probably things in this that as you were going along, I'm going to expect to see X happen, and so just go around the block, starting with Everett. Tell me, what was it you were expecting to see? Maybe you didn't expect to see and got, but or expected to see and also got.
Well, I mean, the biggest one would be the ejection seat. Ejection seat was mentioned in the whole conference room thing of like, how they had thinly armored tanks, no ejection seats on the planes, this, that, and it's like, oh, okay. And then there's this, plane that's decommissioned that they have to fix up. And then when he's talking to him about what he has to do and kind of like what Chris said, and then the camera pans out and away, but then you see him point and they're talking about something else inside the cockpit. It was kind of like he's going to eject out of the plane. It's okay. I already see that coming. He's not going to die. He's not going to self-sacrifice himself. The other one that I didn't see coming, and I don't know, maybe it's because my brain is about the size of Godzilla's in King Kong versus Godzilla 62. But I didn't see the girl coming back. Like, I thought the telegram was from somebody else. Like, because then I'm like, how? And then, of course, she has like that lesion or that growth or whatever that, maybe she's poisoned by radiation and she's still going to die, but she's alive for the moment because it kept her alive. I don't know. All we can do is speculate on that. But I didn't see that coming. Everybody else was like, oh, yeah, it was her. Christopher was like, oh, yeah, it's her. And then my wife was even like, oh, she's alive, I bet, and it's just like, everyone else saw it coming but me, I guess.
Well, I thought they were going to mislead us. I thought maybe that was too obvious with the telegram, that maybe it was a way of them getting the misinformation that our lead had actually died. So the young girl's father. So I thought maybe they were going to mislead us with the fact that it comes in, they get the news that he actually died, and then he comes back into the little girl's life. So I thought maybe they were going to try, maybe a reverse on a reverse on a skip on a, I don't know, but they didn't go that way. And before we go to Chris here, Helmy's in the chat. Thank you so much, Helmy.
What's up, Helmy?
Richard, he saw the girl, Richard. Well, Richard, of course, Richard. Yes. Well, and again, they could always mislead you, but go ahead, Chris. Anything you want to point out with?
When the girl, I guess the love interest, when she got blown away, I was like, oh, she's dead. Oh, wow. Like I honestly felt like really bad about that because I was really rooting for the characters. So I was definitely on the side of, okay, yeah, she's gone, and I was going like, okay, this is a good character sacrifice, or because it'll make him have the motivation to take care of the little girl and all that. And for normally in stories like this, I like character sacrifices to stay as sacrifices, because I feel like if they come back, it sort of neutralizes what that sacrifice was made for. But for some reason in this film, when she did come back, like as soon as the telegram was received, I was like, that's the girl, isn't it? And then when they got reunited, I actually was really happy about that. I was happy we got a happy ending with it. But the other thing that I was not expecting, well, here's the thing, I was expecting it, but I wasn't expecting how it happened, how it went down, was I knew that obviously they were going to have a plan to defeat Godzilla. And I was thinking, okay, this film could go into three different directions, maybe. Like Godzilla comes up and they end up killing him, and that's the end of the film. or he comes up, he completely destroys Tokyo, and they are completely helpless, and it ends on a cliffhanger where he just triumphs, like it's a roar, and that's it, Tokyo's just completely ruined or whatever. The other one was he either just he goes into the ocean and leaves them. Maybe he gets too damaged or something, and then he ends up retreating and to come back for a sequel or something. But turned out like, yeah, okay, they technically killed him, but how it went down was like, whoa, that was an intense showdown. And seeing I guess another reference would be like in the Kiryu saga when the jet's like flying into Godzilla's mouth, to save the girl getting shot at. But when he flew in and then ejected, and then the bombs go off. I mean, to see a film to see like Godzilla actually get his head blown up is something that I thought I would never experience, because Godzilla's indestructible, right? But then that little mine that blew the side of his mouth off, we're like, okay, this guy's a little bit vulnerable. And so just the idea that when the smoke was clearing and you just see Godzilla, like just his head's gone, and then all of a sudden, like again, like GMK feeling where his like beams are starting to fly out of his body as he's like disintegrating or whatever. That I was like, again, I expected that sort of like fight where they were going to end up killing Godzilla, but I did not expect it to go down the way it did, and it was just fantastic. I was like, oh my god, so good. Yeah.
Well, and doesn't a Godzilla movie got to do something like that to throw us something unexpected and set the bar in a different way? Like the original Gojira, it's hard to get beyond that bar of saying the audience hasn't seen anything like this yet. So how do you top that? Do you go super violent? Do you go a completely different direction with the look of Godzilla?
Volcano in the next one.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've got all kinds of ways to rid yourself of the Godzilla problem, right? And Zimzilla99, thank you for the super chat. And by the way, Richard, we still love you. Brother Kaiju, we still love you. Anyways, I know you see all, know all. So yeah, there's some of that predictability, like you said, but some of the things that maybe you didn't expect. Kevin, yeah, lay it on us.
I mean, I think it's funny that you bring up the ejector seats because, as I saw it the first time in the theater, the ejector seat is clearly labeled in German. So I was just like, at no point was there a doubt in my mind that there was an ejector seat there. So,
whether you could read German or not.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of an amusing thing on rewatch to like see them try to like imply that it wasn't there. Yeah, I was surprised, when Noriko gets blown away. That was definitely I think that was the big shock of the movie, aside from maybe when Godzilla first appears on Odo Island, because that's another one that really just comes out of nowhere. And then the little kind of like the things that get set up earlier that do come back around nicely, like when Mizushima shows up with the tugboats at the end to like, he says earlier like your planet is full of holes, and then he gets sent off to not contribute anything. So stuff like that was not necessarily what I would have seen coming, and comes back around big time. But I didn't have a whole lot of like, oh, my jaw's on the floor moments as it was going through.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the things. Yeah, it's like, how do you set the bar? And I've mentioned this before. There are certain special effects films throughout history that have really set the bar to the next level. You go back to obviously the original King Kong, but I've also mentioned the Wizard of Oz. The original Wizard of Oz that has just it blew audiences away in every way and is beloved throughout the decades. And Star Wars, the original Star Wars, bar's been set high. Jurassic Park, the first one, and then everything after that point tried to replicate the magic that they had already established in some of these films. So is this film going to be that sort of a masterpiece that not just in visual effects, but in story writing and a lot of different things like that. I guess I did appreciate that this was brought down to the human level rather than being the military, focusing on the military perspective. I actually liked, how the 2005 War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg, is just following this guy who's just trying to protect his family. And the stakes for him are set at that level. Saving the world is too big for an individual, but can I protect my adoptive daughter here? That's something that I can achieve. That's something I can risk my life for and even sacrifice my life for. And so, bringing it to that level, I think did that impact on the audiences. Now the question is, and I think maybe we've mentioned it, but how our wives felt about the film. My wife actually liked this. She is not a Godzilla fan. And actually, after it was over, we had a great conversation about this. And it wasn't like, it was just like every other Godzilla movie I've seen. This one definitely had something that, was engaging for her, being that familial aspect. So go around it. Our wives have had the chance to see this once, twice, maybe. And, how'd they feel?
Well, mine, she puts it right up there with Shin, because when we got together in 2016, she knew about Godzilla, but she's never really seen anything. So her first introduction was the original. We watched it together and she enjoyed that. And then later that year, Shin Godzilla came out and she's like, that's my favorite. I loved that movie. She absolutely loved it. And she's the same way with this one. She's like, it's good. It's solid. And again, keep in mind, this is with her only seeing bits and pieces of all the fun goofiness of, all the other movies. She's seen bits and pieces of Megalon, Hedra, Space Godzilla, stuff like that. So, but for her to, really enjoy and take away from the movies, at least the newer ones of the Reiwa period, the way that she has, she's really enjoyed them. So, and again, she's not a big Godzilla fan at all. She participates and knows that I love it, and she respects that. Chris.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. My wife is the same. She's not a Godzilla fan whatsoever. She sort of knew about Godzilla, but the first time when I first met her and I first asked her about, hey, do you know who Godzilla is? She's like, is it that dinosaur thing? That's like one of the first things that, that she says. But the first, I did show her 54 for the first time, and then I showed her 84, and she's like, okay, it was just too old, for her. It's just not gripping or anything like that, because she's just not into like the really old classic films, especially black and white. It's really hard for her to get into like a black and white film like that. So but she understood it, like, she respected it in a way. She's like, okay, I get it. And we showed her like the MonsterVerse films. She's a fan of the Godzilla being a hero thing. She likes Godzilla being a hero. So when we watch the MonsterVerse stuff, she likes that more because Godzilla is more of a good guy in those. And then when I showed her Shin Godzilla, she was like, okay, it's okay. She wasn't a major fan of it or anything like that. I think also the first appearance when Godzilla first shows up is like the turkey Godzilla. She just laughs. She was just laughing out loud. She's like, what is that? Like, so I was like, I know. But with this one, no, she said it was really good. She did enjoy it. She doesn't need, she said that she doesn't need to see it again, but she definitely, was able to follow it, because that's one of the hard things with some of these films, that it's hard to follow. So she was able to follow it the whole way through, even with the subtitles. And I would say that that's really good. The fact that a foreign film has a story that's simple yet complex like it is, but the fact that it can have someone like her who can still follow it, even reading the subtitles, and fully understand what's going on. I mean, she actually was, when the pilot was talking to the engineer guy, and he was, the camera pulled back and they were saying, this is the ejection thing. She actually looked at me and she was like, oh, he's totally gonna eject. Like he's good. So like she was even predicting stuff, you know, and normally she doesn't do that with these films because she doesn't, you know, it's hard to get into it. So she said it was a good one for sure.
Saw that one coming 100 miles away.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's not bad. They use metrics.
I think the Telegram too. I think she told me that as well. She's like, it's the girl.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Helmy appreciated that, that final line, "Is your war finally over?" Yeah, that was a good line. It brought.
I got emotional with that scene.
Yeah,
I almost teared up.
That was a good, way to, finish it out. Kevin, yeah, your wife actually speaks fluent Japanese, so very interested in hearing about this.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny you mentioned tearing up because Yamazaki, like one of his hallmarks is making these tear jerkers, and like I was just checking the stats, and like when Friends Knocking on Monster Island came out, the audience was polled, and something like 74% of people said that they cried while watching it. And then Stand By Me Doraemon came out a few years later, and then like 88% of people said they cried during that. So yeah, both of the times my wife went to go see Minus One, she really teared up. So I guess it's effective emotional manipulation.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Yamazaki's there. Please give me your tears.
Yes, exactly.
I want to taste them, right? So yeah. And I'll tell you this, and we'll say this in conclusion. We'll go around the room with our shout outs. Is that we have wonderful wives that put up with us, whether they're Godzilla fans or not. We are very blessed by them in our lives. So. Start with Kevin. Would you like to shout out where can they find you and where can they find your published works?
All right. I'll shout out to my wife Amanda. She's not watching this. She's upstairs doing something. So, in terms of my stuff, I am on the Mazer Patrol blog, which is mostly a Facebook page at this point. Central admin doing stuff for that. I am frequently on the Kaiju Transmissions podcast. We're actually recording about this movie tomorrow night, so look forward to that one. I am at all sorts of conventions presenting stuff. I'm going to be at Anime NJ later this month to have a couple of Kaiju-related panels there. And I have a book, Kaiju for Hipsters, 101 Alternative Giant Monster Movies. That's available on Amazon.
All right, excellent. So go out to Amazon. Yeah, pick up Kaiju for Hipsters. Chris.
Yeah, you can find me at two YouTube channels, CJ Cuypers Productions and also GojuFan93. I do have a Twitter account, CJ Cuypers. That's pretty much the main places where you can find me. I also run the 1984 collector group on Facebook. So that's another fun place to be if you're an 84 fan. So that's pretty much where you can find me.
Well, and the Emergence of Monsters, is that out there for people?
Yes, yeah, that's part of the CJ Cuypers Productions banner. So that's on Amazon right now. So
okay, yeah, look up Emergence of Monsters. I want you to shout out. Yeah, go to Amazon, get your published work. Go ahead, Everett.
Well, you can find me, of course, at Godzilla Fan Freaks here on YouTube, and as well as I have a Facebook and Instagram page for Godzilla Fan Freaks. That way you stay in the loop of everything that I do. I do figure reviews, movie reviews when they call it. I do my live stream shows, Kaiju Chill Clock. I'm trying to get back into the groove of doing that on a normal schedule. And so that's always fun to go do. And then, of course, the big one, I am the owner and creator of the Tucson Kaiju Festival. So, you can always find me with announcements for upcoming shows and festivals that I plan on doing locally here in Tucson. And, you can find me at all those. And I just say again, Nick, thank you again for just having myself and all of us on here. And what a time it is to be a Godzilla kaiju fan in general. Like we are eating so well right now between Minus One, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, the new MonsterVerse trailer that dropped today, which again, I'll say what I'll say about the MonsterVerse. Like, I'm not that big invested and into it, but I will say this looks like it's going to be just another fun, wild ride of a kaiju movie.
It looks
And it's
crazy.
just awesome that we have Toho that can give us the seriousness of Godzilla, and then we have Legendary that gives us our fun adventure Godzilla kaiju fight movies.
Modern
So
day Showa.
we get everything full circle right now, and we should just embrace it, and all of us just be very happy and having our minds blown over and over again, atomic blasted, if you will.
Oh, well said. You took the words right out of my mouth, especially about, how much content there is coming out, whether it's Legendary or Toho, and even Netflix has got its stuff kind of going on out there. There's a lot of Ultraman stuff, and I definitely want to shout out for Kevin for the Shin Ultraman commentary that you and Alex Rushdie got the chance to record. Now that it's that publicly it's out there to talk about, but as far as that disc and that home media, is that available near future here?
Yeah, it should be coming out later this month. So it is a Canadian release, but you can order it basically to be delivered anywhere. So it's the Raven Banner release of Shin Ultraman. Okay,
Raven Banner, check that out. That is going to be some very interesting and just a wealth of knowledge, full of commentary for a film that I really appreciated, which was Shin Ultraman. And so, yeah, definitely check that out. And of course, you're here on the Monster Report. Thank you so much for all your support. Like, subscribe, Atomic Blast that like button, and get us over that 100,000 subscribers mark. We're so close to that. And thank you so much to all the fans. Thank you to these gentlemen for all your time, again, being very generous with it. I just love talking to content creators and fans. Wherever you come from. I will be appearing Tuesday night on the Sci-Fi Nerds. So guys, everyone out there, check that stream out on YouTube and Facebook. And I know we'll have a lot more chats about everything that's coming out that's kaiju related in the near future. From me, Nick Adam Poling, this has been another episode of the Monster Report Live. We will catch you next time. Thank you so much.
あれはゴジラ